It's okay to not be okay. There comes a time in life when you experience a story that hits you in all of the right places in the most unexpected ways. It's Okay to Not Be Okay is a slice-of-life K-drama that made me not only feel a level of emotional catharsis that I haven't felt in a long time, but also taught me things I never even knew about myself. Dramatic, I know. This show is far from perfect from a plot standpoint, however its themes and character work is some of the best I have seen in a very long time. Although It's Okay to Not Be Okay is critically acclaimed in Korea, it remains very underappreciated in the wider world, so I thought I'd make a slightly different video than usual and do a review that will hopefully inspire some of you to check it out. This video is going to be largely spoiler-free except for the first 2 episodes, as they will help me to better explain the premise of the show. But before I go into any analysis or explanation, I'm going to actually start with who this show is not for. This story is definitely of an acquired taste, and so I don't want to try and reel anyone in who simply won't enjoy it out of a subjective preference. This show grapples with a lot of themes and subjects around mental illness. If you're triggered by depictions of mental illness in media, then this show probably isn't for you. Second, this show is a slow burn drama focused on deeply exploring 3 characters. It is quite light on plot, has minimal to no action scenes, and lingers almost self-indulgently on thematic writing. If you don't enjoy deep character studies, or you're in the mood for something fast-paced, then this show probably isn't for you. Lastly, It's Okay to Not Be Okay is, as I've said, a Korean TV show with currently no English dub. It is unique in its presentation and uses several abstract mediums to convey its story. If you don't enjoy abstract foreign media, then this show probably isn't for you. Hopefully, however, those things I've just said might have piqued the interest of some of you watching, and if that's the case, then I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. Last thing, but I also must apologise to the Korean people for my terrible butchering of your beautiful language. I'm currently learning Korean at the time of this video, but my pronunciation of names is probably still terrible, so for that, you have my apologies. With that all out of the way, however, I'm John from the Author's Anvil, and this is why I think It's Okay to Not Be Okay is criminally underrated. Before I talk about the plot, I'm going to first establish the 3 main characters that drive the plot. Moon Gang-tae is a psychiatric caregiver who has dedicated his life to providing for his autistic elder brother. He is reserved, introverted, and selfless to a fault. It is clear that he deeply loves his elder brother, but at the same time he struggles with his neurodiversity. This is a man who starts off our story as rigid, burdened, and aimless. Moon Sang-tae is Gang-tae's autistic elder brother, who takes on odd jobs at the same time as pursuing art. He is childlike, has no social filter, and loves dinosaurs. A lot. At the start of the show, it is made clear that he suffers with a panic disorder relating to what seems at first to be innocuous things such as butterflies and his hair being touched. But of course, as the show unravels, we discover that those phobias are grounded in a deep childhood trauma. Lastly, our 3rd main character is Ko Min-young, a famous children's book writer with an antisocial personality disorder. She is in many ways the complete opposite to Gang-tae. She is abrasive, selfish, and chaotic, often walking over people in order to get what she wants. Again, it is heavily hinted that she is the way she is due to some deep childhood trauma, though what that trauma is remains elusive for the first part of the show. Now onto the plot. Our inciting incident is Min-young putting on a book signing event at the hospital where Gang-tae currently works. After a patient escapes and becomes violent, Min-young ends up stopping him, but then she is in turn stopped by Gang-tae when she's about to stab the patient with a knife. This incident leads Min-young to develop an infatuation with Gang-tae. After a second disastrous book signing event where Min-young exhibits her crazy on a fan, she is forced to close down her publishing company and go into exile, though she doesn't seem to care for this exile as it gives her the opportunity to pursue Gang-tae further. Gang-tae and Sang-tae move towns to get away from the craziness of Min-young, and for other reasons that I won't spoil, and move in with an old friend. Gang-tae takes a job at OK Psychiatric Hospital, and our second episode ends with Min-young tracking him down and visiting him at this new place of work. I have of course skipped over many of the finer details and left out what the supporting characters are doing, but for the purpose of this review I just wanted to give a basic overview of these 2 introductory episodes. The rest of the show follows 3 main plot lines. The romantic relationship that develops between Gang-tae and Min-young, Min-young developing her next book to get her career back on track, and most importantly, the exploration of the 3 main characters' traumatic pasts and the mysteries within. Before we go any further into this review, I would just like to stress that this show is not just a soppy romantic K-drama. While the romance is indeed central to the story and executed very well, the emotional core of the show is its focus on overcoming trauma and mental illness. Anyway, with all the groundwork and background established, let's get into why I loved this show so much and why I think you would too. I rarely praise the acting of a TV show or film, not because I have high standards, but actually because I have pretty low standards. For me, as long as the actors and actresses are doing a serviceable job to convey the writing, I don't really ask for anything more. However, this attitude was severely torn down by It's Okay to Not Be Okay. The acting from the main cast is simply phenomenal and demonstrated to me how already great writing can be elevated to new heights. Kim Soo-yeon does an absolutely stellar job as the tortured Gang-tae. His sadness, bitterness, and drudgery with his current predicament is shown to us without ever being over the top or cringy. It is heart-wrenching to watch Gang-tae cry, and within the first episode we are already rooting for his happiness, and when we do see glimmers of hope, it is wonderful to watch. So Yeochi may have a few controversies surrounding her, but it is undeniable that she was born to play Ko Min-young. It is very difficult to pull off a detestable and chaotic character that the audience roots for, but my god does she do it. At the start of the show, she is powerful, terrifying, and borderline psychotic, but there are also hints of vulnerability in her performance that instantly make us want to find out more about her. Min-young is just endlessly entertaining to watch, and seeing the journey her character goes on as she discovers what true love is an absolute joy. And I saved the best till last. Words cannot describe the level of mastery that Oh Hyung-se put into his performance of Sang-tae. Portraying a neurodiverse character with authenticity and respect must have been a hell of a mountain to climb, but Jung-se went above and beyond to achieve this. The way he shapes his expression, the little physical tics he does with his body, the slight stutter of his speech. My brain cannot compute that he is in fact not Moon Sang-tae. The emotional range he displays throughout the show is incredible. The tantrums, the panic attacks, the childlike joy at the simplest things, and the comedic elements all land perfectly. It is very clear watching the show and the behind-the-scenes footage that these three actors had an absolute blast on set and developed a genuine connection with one another. Their chemistry is magnetic, and again, it is hard for my brain to compute that they aren't actually the characters from the show in real life. If you are someone who appreciates great acting or is looking to improve their own performance, I can recommend this show purely on that basis. Mental health is a tough topic to handle in media. There is often a danger that writers just give a character a mental illness in order to give them a perceived level of depth, but then either don't bother exploring it or simply don't understand it in a way that's realistic. For the sake of honesty, I would like to quickly make a couple of things clear about myself before I go deeper into this topic. First of all, I am not a mental health professional, doctor, or scientific academic. The following analysis and speculations of certain characters is based purely from anecdotal experience and my own personal, non-professional research. Do not self-diagnose by watching the rest of this video, and please do not take anything I say around mental health as gospel. If you're struggling or think you're struggling with anything mental illness related, please always consult a trained professional rather than some random guy from the internet. Secondly, I think it's important for me to say that I myself have unfortunately a very personal connection to mental illness. This is not the right time or place to go into it, but I wanted to mention it so that you're aware that I will probably have certain biases and some of my arguments may accidentally fall into the realm of emotion rather than logic. And for that, I apologise. Anyway, let's carry on, shall we? As I've already said, one of the show's core themes is around mental health. We see depression through Gang-tae, anxiety and panic disorder through Sang-tae, and bipolar and antisocial personality disorder through Min-young. And given that much of the show is centered around the new psychiatric hospital that Gang-tae works in, we are also treated to explorations of other mental health disorders through several side characters. The show does a great job of giving each character little physical tics or costume choices that hint at their illness before it's revealed to us. I wouldn't say we get super deep explorations of these other mental illnesses, but it's enough for us to appreciate, and more than enough to provide obstacles and points of thought for our core three characters. Thematically, there is already so much going on in this show that I'm actually kind of glad that we don't go any deeper into the side characters. I think it would be too overwhelming and a little distracting. It's Okay to Not Be Okay handles mental illness respectfully and with full thought behind it. Through the course of the story, we come to fully understand how our main characters developed their mental illnesses and why they are the way they are. I also really like how their mental illnesses are not glorified or seen as empowering. They are presented as mental illnesses. Moon-young, for example, is not just a sassy, strong, independent girl boss who puts men in their place, because yas queen. Her abrasiveness and rudeness is presented to us as a bad thing, even if it is played for jokes sometimes, and without giving too many spoilers, part of her character arc is about learning how to treat people more kindly. Her almost sociopathic behaviour at the start of the show is not celebrated, and her growth as a person throughout the show is what is instead celebrated. I also really appreciated how Gangtae's depression is depicted. He's never suicidal or self-harming, but his complete apathy, low energy, and lack of passion for almost everything is horrifyingly realistic. All in all, I think It's Okay to Not Be Okay does a great job at depicting and exploring mental illness. There is much more to talk about, but I can't say anything else without heavy spoilers, so go and check it out for yourself. I want to finally talk about the style and tone of the show. This was quite an unusual one for me, because I'm usually not that into fairy tale-esque cinema, but It's Okay to Not Be Okay does a great job of leaning into the style enough to give the show a unique feeling without being over the top. The fairy tale elements are not just through the stories that are featured in each episode, but in the visual storytelling too. Black colours are often tinged with an ethereal blue, and many of the locations and props evoke that mythic feel. While there are many mystical dream sequences and many a long, trippy stare between our characters, on the whole everything is still grounded firmly in reality. There is little to no suspension of disbelief, and crucially the characters' emotions and choices are sensible and believable. I want to talk a little more about the tone of this show. It's Okay to Not Be Okay is not just a soppy fairy tale romance. Like many of my favourite pieces of media, the writers do an excellent job of juggling multiple tones at once. There is indeed a strong romantic element throughout the story, but we are also equally treated to comedy, dark drama, and cozy slice-of-life vibes. Even when we get snapped from one emotion to another, none of those tones ever feel as though they tread on each other, and for me this is a hallmark of exceptional writing. If you want to hear more about this topic, I have a whole video about it, go check it out. But for the sake of this video, I will just say that being able to quickly shift between tones such as comedy and gut-wrenching drama without being jarring to the audience is exceptionally difficult. Many writers attempt this and often fall flat on their faces, giving us scenes like this. But when it's done well, the audience is treated to an entire buffet of the human experience that we all want our complete fill of. Variety in tone makes a story more interesting and engaging, as any scene can turn out drastically different from another. A great example of this is with Sang-tae. Once again, I'd like to praise Oh Hyung-se's performance as well as the writing here. We often get scenes where Sang-tae's lack of social understanding is played for a laugh or point of endearment, but then quick as a flash that endearment turns sadder as he's unable to connect with someone, and then in extreme cases that sadness turns into violence or panic. In the hands of less capable writers, Sang-tae could be a negative stereotype of a neurodivergent person, someone who is simply a chaotic, childlike clown who messes everything up. But because It's Okay to Not Be Okay has good writers, we instead have a fully fleshed out character who, yes, has drastic mood swings and huge shifts in tone, but is completely understandable. Again, I could draw many examples of other characters and scenarios where we get our successful tonal shifts, but in the interest of preserving spoilers, I'd rather you experience them organically. I would like to close out this little review in gushing by pointing out that even with the praise I've given the show, It's Okay to Not Be Okay is far from perfect. Even though you're going into the show knowing that it's a slow burn character drama, it can at times be a little slow even for my tastes. I think there are a few scenes that either could have been trimmed down or cut out entirely. The recaps at the start of every episode add on at least a couple of unnecessary minutes onto the running time that could definitely be cut. There are also a couple of plot points later on in the show that suffer from "why didn't you call the cops" syndrome and "why is this evil person doing this?", but these things probably warrant further investigation and another rewatch for me to properly solidify the criticism. Lastly, I'd say that the product placement in this show is very egregious. Controversially, I actually don't mind product placement in media as long as it's done subtly and we get a variety of it. I think product placement can solidly ground the viewer into a story if that story is supposed to be taking place in our world. It's Okay to Not Be Okay is indeed supposed to be set in our world, however its product placement is very aggressive. We have way too many wide shots of Subway, and way too many sexy car shots to the point that it's distracting. I understand that these shows like to get the extra budget, but this was a little too much in my opinion. But anyway, if you made it this far into the video, you have my respect and gratitude. I hope that this review has inspired you to check out at least the first episode or two of this amazing show. It hit me repeatedly in the feels, changed the way that I perceive neurodivergent people, and inspired me to explore romance in my own writing. I will absolutely be checking out more Korean content, and who knows, I may do another review if I get positive feedback from this video. If you want more fictional musings for your curious mind, or for some reason you like hearing me ramble on about storytelling, then check out the rest of my content. I'm going to sign off from this video in a slightly different way, as I simply want to assure you, dear viewer, that it's absolutely okay to not be okay.